Hello everyone, welcome back to another Flesh and Blood video. In this one, we'll be taking a look at our next hero from Heavy Hitters, Victor Goldmane, High and Mighty. Victor is a new Guardian hero, one of two in the set. He is more focused on the fatigue game plan. I like how they implemented both the Guardians this set, with one being more aggressive than Bravo and one being more controlling, Victor being the more controlling. From what I've seen, Victor has been played a lot. Hasn't put up too high of numbers, but I think only time will tell to see if Victor can surpass what Bravo can do. With all that said, let's get started with the deck list. Starting off, of course, Victor is a brand new hero, so we need to read him. Victor is a 4 intellect, 40 health Guardian hero, and has the ability, the first time each turn you create a gold token from an effect you control, draw a card. The first time each turn you would fail to win a clash, instead you may destroy a gold you control. If you do, put one of the revealed cards on the bottom of its owner's deck, then clash again. Victor's whole purpose is to create gold and win clashes, which, winning clashes, usually gives you gold. Making gold on your opponent's turn means that you draw the card you won the clash with. That's kind of the idea. You want to be clashing with your opponent on their turn to generate the gold and draw a card. The effects that can generate gold on your turn that Guardian has access to aren't very strong, at least for Victor, considering that most of them block 2 or just aren't the strong Guardian attacks that we're looking for. So we're not including them. But the point still stands that Victor gets to be extremely defensive, replacing a card in his hand on an opponent's turn whenever he does generate said gold. Looking at Victor's equipment, we have a lot of standard things for Guardian. For the weapon, I've decided to go with Titan's Fist. Now you may be thinking, Victor's new weapon, Miller's Grindstone, is very good. And I will say, yes, I think it has beaten my expectation and has proven to be a pretty good weapon. The one issue I have with it is that the second you lose one clash, and there will be a time that it happens, even with Victor's own failsafe, it's definitely possible. Your weapon just kinda doesn't do anything for the rest of the game. Yes, it takes one card out of your opponent's hand, but then they're always throwing 3 or 4 back at you. So, honestly, it just felt kind of weak. The way this deck is built, it can hopefully turn Titan's Fist on the turns that you actually want to be swinging with the Titan's Fist to make this guaranteed come in for 4. I think if you wanted to, you could play for the Miller's Grindstone instead, giving you another clash effect for your few cards that would like to be used to win clashes, but personally, I think Titan's Fist is always going to be a strong option. For the shield, Aramagus is truly the only option. If you're going to play something like Steel Braid Buckler, Aramagus is a straight upgrade since this is a gold in addition to its other effect. And if you were going to play the new shield to get a clash effect, that's pretty bad. Please don't do that. Having the 2 block more consistently is better than having to clash for it, even though you do get to clash for it. Aramagus is truly the only option, and definitely makes the most sense. For the helmet, Crown of Providence, I feel, is the only main board option. Starting with the gold for 2 less armor is not good. Please don't play Crown of Dominion and Victor. And where yes, you can play Victor's Specialization helmet, that unfortunately requires you to play yellows in your deck, in which we only have yellows in our deck because it is Victor's other specialization. meaning we only have 3. So the new helmet really doesn't do much, even though it makes gold. I'm sure a yellow Guardian list will pop up eventually, and I think that could be an idea someone could look for, but from the way that we're trying to play this list, it's just not happening. The other helmet that we want to be playing from this set, Balance of Justice, is in the sideboard. Just know that. This will be the main option, though, for most of our matchups. For our chest piece, we are solely on Feindel's Spring Tunic. Guardians have been going in between this and Tectonic Plating for a long time. I think right now we are in a Feindel's meta, especially since Victor will be bringing Sledge instead of a Nothos. I think this makes a lot more sense over Tech Plating. Although the armor could be nice, you could try to find room for both. I just think pure Tunic has so much more upside. For the gloves, the new Gauntlets of Iron Will are the pure choice. Yes, you could run Crater Fists. The actual effects on Gauntlets of Iron Will really only pop up in like 2 matchups, and they're both Warrior. I guess 3. Well, I guess every Warrior. There are a lot of Warriors. This will come up only against Warrior. Like, that's about it. Or like Pummel. This effect isn't the strongest. Yes, it can save you extra health. In theory, you do get 5 health from it, which makes it really strong. But Crater Fists, we're never activating it anyway. So the actual upside this has is just better than Crater Fist, and is the best glove option for just its 3 health. And that's what Guardian wants. The final piece of equipment is the Civic Steps. In my original set review, I talked about how the new Guardian shoes that want you to have both tokens in play could be good. I will admit I was kind of wrong. They're very good in draft and sealed when you're Guardian and you can actually make both tokens, let me say that. But like, Civic Steps are just kind of there. If you know how to block with them, Civic Steps are insanely good. And these will probably be the Guardian shoes for the end of time until we see some other 2-block temper shoe with not a downside that Guardian gets access to. For the rest of our equipment, we do have 4. Sledge of Anvilheim is the other weapon of choice. This will come in when we are playing against decks that the small little hammer won't cut it. I think that's pretty simple. Not on a Nothos, because we are not on Bravo, who can still activate a Nothos even though he's not on Tech Plating. And we're not on Tech Plating. So we can't guarantee we activate the Anothos. So Sledge is a good option since we can always Tunic plus a blue to come in for 6. The other helmet in our deck is Balance of Justice, simply because it's pretty good. I like it. It's good into a lot of matchups. This is kind of the reason we're also not on Norin Headpiece. I wanted 2 AB, and I think the other reasons for having the certain AB we have is pretty good, and I will talk about that when we talk about the AB. But Balance of Justice is good into any hero that will be drawing 2 cards in 1 turn. Kano, this can give you another card you can pitch. KO, just any brute in general because of Blood or Spello, any Art of War deck. Most of the new Warriors, because they will be drawing cards off Cash-In. Any of those decks that will be drawing cards, this card definitely plays very well. I do like Balance of Justice. One of my favorite cards out of the new set. And then the final 2 pieces of equipment that we have in this deck are Norin Gloves and Norin Boots. Norin Boots, I don't need to explain myself. Guardian got no shoes, even with Civic Steps. Norin Boots are the absolute easiest choice for 1AB for Rune Blades and maybe Dromai, if you are a person that likes bringing AB into Dromai. which on Guardian it is pretty useful. So, Norin Boots pretty nice. But then why the inclusion of Norin Gloves? Well, if any Wizard player will tell you, any Kano player, because Icelander matchup isn't set in stone, but any Kano player will tell you that Guardians do not have a fun time playing against Kano. Any Guardian player will tell you that Guardians do not have a fun time playing into Kano. So, a idea of just cut your losses comes to mind, where you just bring 1AB and don't care if you run into wizards, and you'll take the chances. And a lot of the time that is definitely possible. Wizard is not one of the most popular classes. I think the people that play them are some of the most heard, but they're definitely not one of the most popular. So you can definitely take that idea. Personally, I like having 2AB in my lists. Even in my Vi lists, I generally played 2AB just in case. So I guess I'm very cautious of a Flesh and Blood player of wizards. I mean, one of my favorite heroes is Icelander, a wizard. So I know the difference between one and multiple AB. And I think having 2 can still help you. If you have 1 AB into a wizard, you're going to get stomped guaranteed. But at least 2 can give you a chance. Alright, I'm trying to give you a chance. Okay? You don't need 3. I'm just going to say that. If even with 3, the difference between 2 and 3 against Kano ain't going to really cut it. You're just still going to get pitch stacked and die probably. But Norin Glove. The reason we're not on the other Norins is because Tunic is still useful in Kano. We have Balance of Justice for our headpiece slot because Kano does draw cards. And we're not on Arcane Lantern, which would be the third piece, by the way. 3 AB, if you wanted it, Lantern would be the best third one. But we're not on it because we can actually just sack the shield to the Golden Sun, which is a card we haven't talked about yet. But the shield is gold. We can sack it to get that big attack coming into Kano, and they don't play blocks, they don't play D-reacts. We'll be able to hit them for guaranteed damage or make them do something if we play the Golden Sun. So, sacking our shield if we don't have any other gold. So those are reasons for it. Just 2 AB. I think that's easy to understand. Let's start with the main board now, since we talked about all the equipment. Moving on to the main board, you can see that we are only on 45 cards, which means yes, we are adding in a lot of cards in pretty much every matchup. I think these 45 are the cards we'll be playing in most matchups. Test of Strength and Trounce do come out into Wizard. That is fair enough, I think. But looking at the rest of the deck, I think this is pretty standard. All of our blues, we are playing 30 of them. Our main board, we're not on that really high number, around 40-ish, because, well, we're not Bravo. We don't need to play 7-cost attacks or activate Dominate. Of course, we have some in the deck. Macho Grande is a 7-cost attack, but it does get damage. Let's just go over the list of blues real quick and why we're playing them. Buckling Blow, Choke Slam, and Debilitate are good 4-cost, 6-power crush effects that your opponent has to put something in front of to not get crushed. Disable is slightly bigger. That has a more disruptive effect. And Cranial Crush is the same, but it's in the deck for a different reason. Although the effect is very good against a lot of the meta, because a lot of heroes want to draw cards. So, Cranial Crush, Macho Grande, and Thunderquake are in the deck because they're just the biggest blues. They're all 8 power, which is perfect for our clashing. Thunk and Wallop are in the deck for effects that can happen if we do win clashes with them. Most decks can't beat 5. There are really only like 2 or 3 classes that actually can, so Wallop generally, even at blue, does give you a good chance to make the Vigor. Even though it's not the smallest attack in the deck, but the other one is a card we actually will be clashing with. The last blue that we really need to talk about is Clash of Vigor. This is the only attack clash that we're playing in this deck, simply because the Vigor is useful. On turns we do want to be blocking with it, we can get the Vigor and then come in with a 4-power attack, which we do have a lot of, especially when we look at our sideboard. You'll see we are playing a bit more 4-power reds, so the Vigor is actually useful. It can also work well with Pummel. It can help us play a Spinal off of blue in our Tunic. The Vigor just seems the most useful. We're not on the reds because I wanted the blue, and even though this doesn't pitch for Titan's Fist, that's the only blue in the deck that doesn't pitch for Titan's Fist. If you'll notice, we're not on Terra Sunder either. That's simply because it's not an attack that can win clashes. This deck wants to not fully disrupt the opponent, but hit your opponent similar to how other fatigue decks do. They want to chip your opponent down, and then eventually they want to finish them off with something bigger, something like a Golden Sun here, or a Macho Grande, and then just chip them down to where they have to start blocking, and to where that they really can't put up a threat to you anymore, or they run out of cards. And Clash of Vigor giving us that one Vigor can help us chip down the opponent with a lot of our 4s and our blues. It's really strong. Looking at the one yellow in the deck, it's time we talk about the Golden Sun. The Golden Sun is a yellow Guardian attack. It is 4 cost, it is 7 power and 3 block. It is a Victor spec. It has the additional cost to destroy a gold we control, and if we do, it gets +3 in overpower, and that's a May, you don't have to. Which means this comes in for 10 with overpower for just 4 resource. Very strong. Into some decks that can easily block it. Decks with high armor, decks that play Diriac, sure, but into a lot of situations, this can just kill an opponent. Think about Kano. Think about some of the more aggressive Runeblade lists. Think about ninjas, which I guess they are on Diriacs now, but if they didn't, they would get shredded. So, Golden Sun, similar to things like Crippling Crush and Starstruck, are just these big attacks that your opponent has to stop. Even though the 2 that Bravo can play are actually disruptive, this one is just really good damage, and it's very cheap at only 4. As well as, if you win a clash with it, you make a gold token, which means you draw it because of Victor's ability. It's the last clash win with Thunk and Wallop. Moving on to the reds that we're mainboarding. Test of Strength is a 4-block generic block that when we defend with it, we clash and we make a gold if we win. And Shrounce is a little more complex. When it defends, you clash with the attacking hero, then you put them both on the bottom and clash again. So you do 2 clashes, and then if any hero wins both of them, you get a gold, might, and vigor, which is very strong. However, you need to win both. Not the most common into some matchups, so thankfully we have Victor's effect. But this card, when you do hit a full trounce, is extremely strong. So a very good card to have in the deck. It's better than the other blocks, the other red 4-block blocks that Guardian can play. Even though trounce is only 3-block. And then, just 2 good red attacks. Command and Conquer. Super simple, super easy. This is a list where I don't think you can sub the CNC for anything, since it's in the main board now. I guess you could sub it for Humbles or Erase Face or something, but it's just not going to have the same effect. So I would actively try to look for CNCs for this list specifically. And then Spinal Crush, just because it stops go wide turns. It's forced to be blocked by at least something. it's just a good Guardian attack. Looking at our sideboard, everything else we'll be bringing in. Fates, Sinks, we're a fatigue deck. We can't play without our 4 block D-Reacts. 2 Sigil of Solace, because 4 games that are going to go late, the Sigil can sort of punish your opponent for having a weaker turn by giving you 3 life, as well as drawing them very early can put you in the game for an extra turn or 2, as well as even late game sometimes this can save your life in its entirety. Enlighten Strike is just a good attack. It's not easy to go wide like Bravo can. Bravo has easy access to Rouse, which we can't really play because it's an attack with 0 power. They have access to Zealous Belting, which we actually can play. My problem with Zealous Belting, though, is that a few of our blues don't trigger it. Things like Clash of Vigor and Wallop are 4 and 5 power respectively, so they won't get turned. So they won't turn on the Zealous Belting. So it's a little less consistent, as well as both of them block 2. E-Strike is a block 3, very flexible. I think the best go-wide option we could be playing. Then for our other red attacks, Chokeslam and Debilitate red come into most matchups. These are just the stronger red attacks that they kind of have to block. Debilitate has an attack value in theory of 10, because you're preventing 2 damage if you get the crush effect. And Chokeslam is very similar, where it stops pumps that your opponent might do on their turn. Both of these are, well, Chokeslam isn't a must block, but both of them save you more life than it would be to play something else. Something like Mangle. Mangle is a card I think is actually pretty nice. I think some people might put Prime to Fight in this spot. That's the 5 for 9 that costs 1 less if you've controlled a Vigor and has 1 more power if you've controlled a Might, which I think is definitely a good option. However, if you think about how that card works compared to Mangle, you're trading the 2 power just for the crush effect on Mangle, since Mangle already costs 1 less, so Prime to Fight will cost 4, and you're already getting the Might, so the difference of, so both of them will have the same power increase, and Prime has 1 more base than the additional 1. So you're trading 2 power for this crush effect, which I think is pretty worth it into the matchups you actually want Mangle. We're only bringing Mangle into a very few matchups. We'll bring it into the slower matchups we're trying to fatigue, because this can be used to break some of their temper armor or even some of their battle worn armor, which is very nice. This card just shreds through armor. It's the kind of the idea. And then also into Wizard we'll bring it in because we don't want to bring in a bunch of dead cards into Wizard. And this card isn't really dead because if your opponent gets greedy, takes a buckling blow, crush, we can put the counter on their Striders, and then they have to block the Mangle or it's going to destroy those Storm Striders. So it does have slight upside. Similar to what I said about Titan's Fist, it's definitely a choice that you can make as the pilot. I personally prefer Mangle, but I think some people might prefer just the damage factor, so Prime to Fight is definitely an option. I wouldn't play both, but I think one or the other is definitely a better choice. 2 Pummel. I don't need to say anything about Pummel. You're playing Guardian with a lot of 4s, which means pitching 2 blues and throwing a 4 will always threaten a Pummel, even on a 4-card hand. Pummel, red Pummel, gives you +4, which means it will trigger all of your crush effects because you're giving +4 if they didn't overblock, which is very strong. And then you get a disruptive discard, and both of the weapons we're playing are hammers, so if you need to close a game, you can do it. Pummel needs to be here, even if it's 2 block. It's an insane card. And then the last card in the deck, a card that I've been very high on, Oasis Respite. This is sort of that idea of if we're playing against Wizard, I'm not giving him a free win. I'm going to at least try. As well as Oasis is just good into fatigue matchups as well. If we are ever lower life, this is a 1 resource for a 5 health swing. Very nice. I am very high on Oasis a lot of the time. I think it's a great card, and we really don't have the ability to play Unmovable or Staunch, because if we're playing those, then we're also losing another card guaranteed, where we can Tunic the Oasis, and even in our slower matchups, we can Tunic the Oasis in like Guardian Mirrors, so it still has its use in those types of matchups. So I think Oasis definitely deserves its spot. It's up to you if you want to play the 3 like I have, and 2 Sigil, or 3 Sigil and 2 Oasis. I could see a reasoning to go to 3 Sigil and only 2 Oasis. Personally, I'm very high on Oasis. I really like it. But you don't have to be. If you're not, you can just be on 3 Sigil instead. But with all that, that's the whole deck list. I think this one's a little longer because I definitely talked a lot more and explained everything, but I think that's probably for the best because it's explaining the way the cards work more and how they can interact with each other. I think that's definitely better than just like what I've definitely done for some videos going, alright, here's this deck list, here's all the cards in it, go have fun. So I think explaining a deck a little more can be useful. Some decks I can't explain as well as others, but I play very similarly to how this deck wants to play, so I can explain it a lot easier. So I did. So I want to thank you all for watching. I hope that if you decide to play Victor, you learned something from this video. And I will see you all in the next one. Not sure who we're going to do next week, but it will definitely be one of the last 3 new heroes from Heavy Hitters. I ended up changing my KO list a little, so we're not going to do that one right away. Maybe we'll end up doing that one last, because that's definitely the list I've been working on the most, since that's the one I've been playing the most, but we'll have to see. See you guys next week. Goodbye.